This podcast is hosted by RPP.
If you are easily spooked, creeped, or offended, this might not be the podcast for you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to I Think My Fridge is Haunted Season 7.
A very creepy podcast for very creepy people. That's what we are. And guess who's got her voice kind of back?
Yeah, it's
Almost back.
almost back. It's almost here. There's still like maybe 50 smokes a day.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
quite 100. Yes, I like it. Hello, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I am really good. I'm really excited.
Yeah. We're testing out a new lighting situation.
Yes. How do you like this?
People, are we recording on there, by the way?
We definitely should be. I double checked. I'm scared
good.
now. I want to recheck again. You know what? I am going to check again.
Yes.
And we've had quite the break.
Yes. We have.
Had a
And
summer break.
hopefully some of you guys have watched our 0.075
summer
episode.
wrap up.
Yeah, we did kind of a bonus episode last week where we just talked about everything. And you know what? I think we should do that more often.
I think so too. There is a lot happening at the moment, and it just, it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Kind of separately.
Yeah. We just kind of, we haven't been recording since December and just so much stuff has happened in the news.
I can't believe it's already April as well. Like, I feel everyone's feeling the same way probably. I feel like the start of the year goes really fast. And that just might be a me thing. But so much has happened. And it's like, we've been like, we'll talk about that and we'll talk about that. And now there's too much to talk about.
It was a lot. I mean, we talked for a solid over an hour and a half.
Absolutely we did. And I like the idea of doing it more.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really good idea.
Yeah, maybe we'll do like a winter true crime wrap up.
Yeah. Autumn season wrap up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and go into that and leave the banter for the normal episodes.
Yeah.
I do want to address one thing. Because it's probably like time has passed now from this, but I'm obsessed with Saltburn. Oh, I'm obsessed.
I still have to watch it.
I desperately implore you to watch it.
We've discussed this because I've got this thing where I kind of like was avoiding watching it because I was offended at the amount of advertising it was getting. So I was kind of like being a rebel and not watching it on purpose.
Yeah, it's kind of like people who are like, I'm not going to watch Stranger Things. It's like everybody else wants to watch it. Like, I totally get it.
I proudly have never seen Game of Thrones.
Yep. Yeah, I was one of those people. And then I watched Game of Thrones and I was like, I've been missing out.
Right.
Worth it. So I highly recommend Saltburn. I also just want to quickly, I think we spoke about this last season and I finally watched it. The Pope's Exorcist.
Oh, is that good?
It's amazing.
Is it cheesy?
It's cheesy, but in a really good way.
Every time we go to watch it, my husband kind of goes, it'll be dumb, it'll be crap. And I'm like, I know it'll be dumb because it's an exorcism movie. It's always going to be completely overdramatic. It's going to be completely just cheesy
over the
and
top.
very tropey.
Yeah. But I tell you what, Russell Crowe, he is amazing. He is an amazing actor. Like
Nailed it.
He killed it. And like he was so good. The accent was so good. He was so funny. Yeah. Really, really funny. And then the actual exorcism part of it was like pretty scary. Like obviously not as many practical effects make it kind of like suspend disbelief a bit, but they did it really well. And then the end was super cheesy and I loved that. But it was a really nice fine line. Like if you just want to watch a movie, if you're like, I just want to sit down and watch start to finish just a movie. Yeah. Pope's Exorcist. It was really good.
Okay, cool. I'm going to watch it then.
I had to bring it up.
I need to watch Saltburn. Mm-hmm. What's the other one I needed to watch? We were discussing last week.
Oh, Poor Things.
Okay, Poor Things. Should I or shouldn't I?
Well, see, I need to, it's a little faux pas, but I've only watched half because I got bored. And I did have a conversation with a lovely lady at work who was like, you need to finish it. And I was like, I do.
Okay.
I need to give it the justice. I need to finish it. But I was bored. And my argument was that it felt like Hollywood doing art house film.
Right.
So I was a bit like, whatever. I just don't think I was in the mood for like a 2.5 hour movie.
Or is it an art house film that just made it big? Is it big budget? House.
Yeah, well, I think the director...
Which I think the two don't go together.
Yeah, well, exactly right. That's what I thought. I think the director does a lot of alternative kind of art housey films. There was a few she listed. I think it was The Lobster and Good Times. I think was those ones. And she said, they're so good. He's amazing. Finish it. And I was like, okay, all right. But yeah, I don't know. I think I have my blockbuster with Saltburn. I really loved it. And I think anyone who's seen Saltburn either loves it or hates it. And I think that's
what I've heard.
Yeah. And I loved it. I think Barry Keoghan needs all the awards now. Immediately,
right?
Because he was so good. Everyone was amazing. And Jacob Elordi, some Australian talent. Hello.
Oh, cool.
So that was highly recommend. If you've been putting it off because you're like, oh, the scene. There is multiple the scenes. Just do it. Yeah. Just get off your high horse, get off your like hoity-toity horse, and just watch it and just enjoy it because it's just bonkers.
Right.
Just insane. So, yeah, I loved it.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Is there anything over summer that you were like, I love this book, movie?
I don't think so. No, nothing that springs to mind, to be honest with you. Nothing's really blown my mind lately.
Yeah, we've been working as well. Like
I watched House of Ninjas on Netflix. It's a great show if you just want to watch something really easy to watch. It's about this family, and they're a martial arts family, and they don't want to be ninjas anymore, so they're trying to be normal. And then, they kind of get dragged back into it and they have to be ninjas again.
That's awesome. All right, I'm putting that on the list.
It's a good show. It's a great show.
It feels like a Jackie Chan early 2000s vibe.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, today I've got a very exciting story, but shall we do a fresh fact from the freezer?
Let's do a fact.
Facts from the freezer. Facts from the freezer.
Okay. My fact today kind of ties into my story. So shall we do mine? We'll do yours, and then we'll come back to me with my story.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I have a weird feeling that maybe I did this one last season, or I wanted to do it as a fact. So if I have, forgive me.
Right.
Okay, so in 1998, a preservation group began restoring Benjamin Franklin's residence in London in a house on 36 Craven Street, which, like, awesome.
Yeah, we talked about this.
We did talk about this?
Didn't we talk about this in the live show?
Maybe it was the live show.
Now, if people haven't watched the live show, which is on YouTube.
It's on YouTube, but is it recommended? Is it down there? I don't know how YouTube works.
Just tell the fact again.
Yes. Okay, so during this restoration, during their work, they discovered a secret windowless room under his garden containing the remains of 15 people.
If you've got a windowless room, you're up to no good.
You're up to no good. Under the garden?
Or you're making kimchi.
Oh, yeah, fair. Or like cider, homemade cider.
Or maybe like that cave cheese.
Yeah, cave cheese. Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's all coming back to me now. I think, yes, I did tell this fact, but I'm telling it again because, like, what?
Yeah, it's weird.
This guy, Benjamin Franklin, I've been learning, like, because of this story, I've been learning more about him, and I'm like, he's up to no good. He's up to no good the whole time.
So Did you say this was in London, right?
Yeah, this is in London.
He's American.
Yeah. So I think this was because he was like really sympathetic and I don't know, really in the European scene. I assume he had a house. It did say actually, did I?
It's just like back then, like, I'm going to go to my London house for the summer, and you're going to have to like leave like the summer before
just to get back there.
Well, this would take 100 years to get there.
Exactly. I wonder how long it did take, but probably that much.
Oh, it probably takes, what year is it?
So it was 2 decades before signing the Declaration of Independence, so 1750s.
Oh, that's freaking ages ago. I don't think, that they even regular did
trips
like
that.
Yeah. Like, unless you were a
Benjamin
pirate.
Franklin, probably. or a pirate.
I have no idea
either.
I don't know. That's wow.
It said Franklin left his English home to come back to America. So 200 years later, these 15 bodies were found in the basement.
15.
Wow. What's he doing down there? I thought he was just a little bit of a freak, but that's just that's hectic.
I mean, they could have just been there the entire time that he owned the house.
Well,
I mean, did he
exactly.
buy the house when it was already built, or did he build the house?
Maybe I need to explore that. I don't know. I feel like if you have a house and there's just a secret door, you're not walking into it. You're going, what's down there? And if you found the remains of 15 people, I don't know, maybe in the 1750s, you were just like, oh, well, like, okay, that's cool, I guess. Like, no. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting and does tie into my story a little bit. So what is your fact
That
today?
ties into your story.
It does.
That's cool.
Mystery.
This ties into nothing.
Except for being weird.
Did you know? Actually, it kind of does tie in because it's about traveling.
Oh, see?
It's about traveling. Did you know that in 1920, the US Post Office stopped the practice of delivering children cross-country via parcel post?
Stopped.
I'll let that sink in.
They stopped.
Why did they start?
Why?
Yeah.
When and where and what? Can you say that again? Oh my God.
Did you know that in 1920, the US Post Office stopped the practice of delivering children cross-country via parcel post? So apparently so many parents were doing it that it was finally abolished.
They were like, we've got to stop this.
Whether due to safety concerns or otherwise, I don't know. But there was one example in Idaho of a 4-year-old girl named Charlotte May Piersdorf who was posted to her grandparents 150 kilometres away. And apparently this was fairly common.
What are they posting them in? Like little, like wooden boxes?
Like a box with a breathing hole and a loaf of bread.
Yeah. Some bread and cheese and a little water. Maybe probably not water even.
Yeah. Probably. They're like, you'll be right. It's only, what, 2 days?
Yeah, you'll be right.
2
Just
days
hang
on,
out.
you know, on a bumpy carriage. Fine.
I feel like the 1920s is too late to be like, that's far too recent to be stopping that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's great. I must find out when this started. And parents were like, oh. Because I've been on, like, as a kid, you go on, like, my grandparents are in Queensland, so I went on a flight by myself. My parents put me on the flight, and then my grandparents picked me up. That was horrifying. I was horrified as a child. I was so scared.
Yeah.
It was like an hour and a half, maybe.
But at least you had a seat.
But I had a seat. I had a stewardess
Access to
looking
a
after
toilet.
me. Yeah, absolutely. That was scary enough, let alone being in a box and be like, we'll see you in a couple of days. Bye, sweetie.
Yeah.
Bye.
And the US Post Office is like, we're not going to do this anymore. Does no one see how weird this is?
Yeah.
And the parents are like, damn it.
They've just got a few cuts and bruises. Don't worry about it. They'll be fine.
But it's so convenient.
Yeah.
It works.
I don't have to do anything.
She's small.
She doesn't mind. She's not even going to remember. Oh my God. Okay, well, that's awesome. Thank you for that fact.
I don't even know where I got that from.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, how did you even get that information?
Okay.
All right.
Where are you taking us today?
Okay, so I even have costume for today. I am taking you to the Hellfire Club.
I'm excited.
Oh, I think the lighting's perfect for this today. So I'm obviously wearing...
Speaking of windowless rooms...
We're going to talk about the infamous Hellfire Club today, and I'm obviously wearing the season 4 Stranger Things Hellfire top. I'm just going to little promo. If you would like your own Hellfire Club shirt, they are available at lanarose.com.au. You are welcome, Mum.
Do yourself a favour.
For a little bit of promo. Yes, I love it. Did you like Stranger Things?
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm a mega fan. I do like it. I like the earlier seasons better.
Yeah.
The last season was a lot.
It was a lot. It was pretty intense, and it seemed a little bit more like Netflix doing its thing. You know what I mean? Like it was. They got gorgeous characters. They got like it was a lot at once, especially like the 2-parter ending being like 3 hours long or something.
It was really long. And also at the beginning of the season, there was this one whole episode where they're just playing basketball for like an hour and a half. And I'm like, when is this episode going to start?
Yeah, the nostalgia factor.
There was a whole kind of like, nostalgia factor. Yeah, there was some filler in there that I didn't think was necessary.
Yeah.
But it's a good season.
Yeah, I love it. I did subscribe to the Eddie Munson fan club. I am a big fan. I
like Billy.
Yeah, Billy's great, isn't he? So good. And I suppose technically rip Eddie, we will see. I'm in the conspiracy theory that he is still alive because he was so popular. But their D&D group is called the Hellfire Club.
Yes, it is.
And I had a bit of curiosity. I was like, what is this about? What is this connected to? And boy, howdy, is it different from a D&D group.
Yeah,
Or
it's
is
not
it?
what you expect.
It isn't, and I love it. So, during the 18th century, a new form of British male began to populate high society, the rake. This term came to define aristocratic and high society gentlemen who were purely engaged in the pursuit of pleasure with little respect for the law or traditional morality.
So we're talking about like Byron.
We're talking Byron.
Let's party.
Yeah.
And write some poems.
Yeah, we'll sleep with whoever we want. If you like Bridgerton, I think Anthony is described as a rake.
Okay.
So getting older and
But
not
let's
married.
throw some opium and some occult in there.
Yeah, and also they kind of get to do whatever they want while women turn into spinsters and kind of get shunned from society. It's a thing. But yes, we're talking about rakes. So these young gentlemen that just wanted to do whatever they wanted.
Right.
And a lot of them did.
Yes.
So, as described in the Hellfire Club's A History of Morality, a book by Jeffrey Ash, it's a really, really good book.
Hang on. What's the book called again?
It is called The Hellfire Club's A History of Anti-Morality.
Anti-morality. Okay, cool.
It was really interesting because it really gave the background to how we got to where the Hellfire Club was happening. Really, really interesting book. I highly recommend it. Okay, so to quote our author, the rake emerged as an ever more significant figure. Though never quite losing touch with his early association with street gang unruliness, he tended to become less crudely turbulent to acquire character. More and more, he was a gentleman of talent as well as nominal breeding who drank, gamed, and wenched his impudent flamboyance and carried on in the same style long after the effervescence of youth has passed.
In modern times, would we call that a troll?
A little bit.
I feel like they're just kind of winding people up for the sake of it.
Yeah.
That's what that description reminds me of.
Yeah, it's kind of like, like 34-year-old guys who think they're 23 still or 25 and they can do whatever they want. They just want to get away with it. But instead of us going, it's a 20-year-old dude, you go, that's a 35-year-old man and he should know better. Like, it's a bit like that.
Yeah, but these guys were quite moneyed, weren't they?
Very influential. Came from money, came from wealth, so they didn't have to worry about anything.
Right.
That's why they were so interested in this kind of thing and just not worrying about the world because they've got everything they need. Mm-hmm. A number of clubs and secret societies were founded that allowed their members to indulge in their debaucherous tastes, but none were more notorious than the Hellfire Clubs. So my sources... Clubs. Yeah, I thought there was
Plural.
just one.
Wow.
Not quite.
Okay.
So my sources today are The Hellfire Clubs, A History of Anti-Morality by Jeffrey Ash, The Hellfire Club by Daniel Mannix, Wikipedia, ancientorigins.net, theconversation.net, archives.org, thegardentrust.com, Sam and Colby on YouTube as well, also BuzzFeed and Shane Madej on YouTube, and the Dashwood Enigma documentary from the BBC Legacies.
You went deep.
I went deep.
Wow.
It was, I kind of mention it a bit later, but there's actually no official documented history of the club. It is...
And that's probably on purpose.
Very much so. So it's like picking up...
Because they probably wouldn't have got away with a lot of shit that they did.
Absolutely.
And B, because they wanted the mystery.
They wanted the mystery
and the
the
notoriety.
illusion. Yeah, exactly right. And they also didn't want it traced back to them. It's it's pretty intense. So I had to do a lot of cross-reference. Luckily there was some really great documentaries, and I'll explain how the YouTubers come into it as well. Yes, okay. So, are you ready? I'm excited. Long before season 4 of Stranger Things claimed the name, the Hellfire Club was an 18th century society of blue-blooded rakes and powerful players with not just one debaucherous location, but several across England and Ireland. These clubs were held in a private space for the elite of society, those who are often involved in politics, obviously.
Yeah.
To play, live out their wildest fantasies, to take part in what were societally perceived as immoral acts, where wicked thoughts and filthy acts could be enjoyed freely and out of sight of the great unwashed.
It's like that whole thing about, very, very wealthy executives going to see a dominatrix.
Absolutely.
Because when you've got all that money, what luxuries are left?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that is luxuries of, I suppose, morality or experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And being in a position of power, it's so often that they want to be dominated by someone else because they want the difference. And I think it's the same with submissive. Like, it's usually someone in a lower position and they want to be the dominant one. Like, it's all that. It's definitely that. And especially when, talking about the 18th century, so the 1700s, a lot of change was happening within society, within all the countries. Like, obviously we see the independence of America and things like that. So I think they're under a lot of pressure and a lot of wanting to get it right, if you will. The beginnings. So let's begin with our first player, known and the only kind of main origin of the club, the first person to do it, basically. So his name is Sir Philip Wharton, the first Duke of Wharton. He was born the 21st of December, 1698. He was an English Jacobite politician who was one of the first people in the history of England and the first since the 15th century to have been raised into dukedom, whilst still a minor. And
now, the Jacobites, I know from Outlander,
yes,
were largely Scottish, right?
I believe it was supporting the Scots to separate from the crown, I believe. I could be completely wrong. I did look it up when I started the story, but it was a huge political movement at the time.
Which is a whole other episode.
But yes, if you have seen Outlander, you will be familiar. I'm pretty sure it was fighting for Scotland's independence of the crown. So, yeah, very popular, big thing at the time. So Wharton was a prominent politician. The Duke led 2 separate lives. He was a man of letters, a world traveller, a powerful speaker, an elegant writer, and an initially wealthy peer. But in his other life, he was, quote, a drunkard, a rioter, an infidel, and a rake, which is pretty harsh.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's like quite a turn, isn't it?
Yeah.
2 different lives. So the first official Hellfire Club was founded in London in 1718 by Philip Wharton and a handful of other high society friends.
So he was quite young.
So
he would have only been 20.
20, yeah, exactly. So I think this is like prime rake time. That's the thing. Young men, young coming into their time. At this time, London's gentlemen's clubs were very popular, providing a meeting place for every interest, including poetry, philosophy, and politics, coupled with heavy drinking and gambling, of course.
Yeah, sort of like pipes and brandy and
I again, like referring to Bridgeton, you see the clubs they go into, and there's just
that's right, they do. Yeah,
so very that, and I think it was more.
It's like in Great
social.
Expectations, they spend a lot of time. Pip spends a lot of times in those types of places.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So Wharton's Hellfire Club, according to the Blackett or Ord, which I believe was like a conversation kind of paper at the time.
Yep.
Was a satirical gentleman's club which was known to ridicule religion, catching on to the then upcoming trend in England of blasphemy. So obviously before this it was quite like hardcore religion. It was you didn't say a bad word about it.
Yes.
But something happens, which again I'll mention in a little bit. that was changing that. And then suddenly people were thinking like, I don't know if I want to be that hardcore into religion. Do I have to be? Can we talk about it?
Have you ever read the book, I think it's called The Crimson Petal and the White?
No.
It's this freaking brick of a book. It's like 800 pages long. It's about Victorian London. It's fictional, and it's about a guy that is pretty much exactly as you just explained. And I remember in the book, he and his friends, they just basically wanted to get a rise out of people. They were real trolls, and they were writing a book basically saying that prayer doesn't work.
Yeah, there was like... when I was reading about it, there was heaps of like gangs, if you will, that were doing things to get rousers, like get people talking and just being blasphemous on the street. There was one in particular. It was so strange. They like got women off the street and brought them into the club. I think maybe either like luring them in or like, I don't know if they were physically just picking them up. And then they'd bring them in and like spank them and make them do handstands and all this kind of weird stuff.
It sounds like backstage at a Marilyn Manson concert.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it? Maybe that's where I got the idea. Yeah. But that seems to be it. And then they just let him go. So they were just doing all kinds of ridiculous stuff to just get rises out of people.
Like humiliate and offend.
Absolutely. Absolutely that.
But still within the realms of legality. Like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Oh, you're going to say that. Yeah, exactly. We know that one. So the club was meant more as a joke. It was meant to shock the outside world more than a serious attack on religion or morality. It was seen more as an outlet for these very serious men. The supposed president of the club was the devil himself. Although the members called themselves devils and were encouraged to come dressed as biblical characters, they seemingly did not actually worship Satan. It was just fun cosplay for the upper crust Londoners. Yes. Yeah, they love that. So surprisingly, Wharton's club admitted men and women as equals.
Really?
Unlike other clubs or organisations at the time, the club was said to have consisted of 40-odd persons of quality, with a like two-third mix of men and women, obviously leaning with more men than women. The club met on Sundays at different locations around London, including private houses and popular social clubs. There was one recollection that it might have been at the Somerset House, which was obviously one of the Queen's houses at the time in London, which kind of, I was like, oh, really? And then I went, no, that doesn't surprise me.
Oh, who knows?
Maybe. Surprise me. So that might have been a case. Mm-hmm. According to Wharton's family biographer Jonathan Law, their activities included mock religious ceremonies and partaking of meals such featured dishes such as Holy Ghost pie, breast of Venus, and devil's loins.
Right.
And all while drinking Hellfire punch. So it was just a big joke.
Yeah.
It was just for them to
Actually,
come
that
in.
does sound like a party.
It kind of sounds sick.
Yeah.
Low-key, I'm like, you know what? I would dress up.
I would go. Yeah.
Punch? I'm
How
there.
do I get in?
Exactly. Wharton's club came to an end in 1721 when King George I, under the influence of Wharton's political enemies, put forward a bill against the horrid impities and aimed to suppress immorality and profaneness, or profanityness, or whatever it was, accusing the clubs, and particularly the Hellfire Club, of drunkenness, immoral sexual behaviour, and the practicing of black magic. So it seems
Which king was that, sorry?
King George I.
Right, okay. So it only lasted 3 years?
Yeah, only a couple of years.
Wow.
I reckon the political enemies were getting into the club to use it against them. Yeah, and then going back and being like, King George, do you know that this is happening? And just being total snitch about it.
They need to go underground.
Yeah, well, it is so funny you say that. Okay. Wharton's political opposition used their membership as a way to pit against him his political allies, thus removing him from Parliament. After the club was disbanded, Wharton became a Freemason.
Disbanded.
Did it though?
Did it? I wouldn't be. I'd be like...
Yeah, we're totally breaking the club up.
Wait for my word.
just go. Yeah, exactly. Like secret codes and stuff. So why wouldn't you want to do this, honestly?
Like, now we're called Chess Club.
Now we're called Quiet Reading Club. That's us. So Wotton became a Freemason afterwards, and a bit of a fun fact, in 1722, so 1 year after the club disbanded and he was removed from Parliament, he became the Freemason Grand Master of England, which is the highest position for a Freemason. Which I don't know how I feel about talking about Freemasons like as a whole episode, but it's pretty interesting. And
I think there's a lot we don't know.
There's a lot we don't know. We're not allowed to know. But to get to the highest position in Freemasonry in 1 year is pretty insane.
Okay. That would suggest to me that he's got information, like really good information.
Yeah, he's made friends.
He's made friends.
Yeah.
And he's made a sizable donation.
Absolutely. They were like, yeah, you can be the boss. Go for it. So what's the lesson here is that as long as you're a man, it all works out.
Man with money, at least.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay. So now we're getting into the star of the show.
Okay.
Enter Sir Francis Dashwood.
Dashwood.
He's the rake of all rakes, and he has the coolest name. So Sir Francis was born...
Frankie Dash.
Sir Frankie Dash. Frankie D as
Frankie
well.
D,
I
yes.
like that. So he is the only son of a wealthy merchant that was involved with trades in the Mediterranean and Africa. So Francis can be perhaps summed up with one author's description as, quote, an enormously rich man with a genius for obscenity.
Okay.
Which I find a pretty cool description.
And that would have been sort of the first generation of him, of the gentleman rank.
Yes.
So if his father worked his way up as a merchant, we know that, you know, back then to be a working class person was kind of, it doesn't really matter how much money you've got, you are still working class.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
his son probably was the first generation to go out and live that gentleman life.
Yeah, and just be able to do that comfortably, especially being the only heir, which is pretty unheard of at the time.
Okay.
There's a lot of kids. But yes, so Dashwood was educated at Eton College, where he became
Eton, where the princes went. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. He became associated with William Pitt the Elder, who would later become Prime Minister of Great Britain in 1766. That's right, Billy Pitt. Billy Pitt in the house. He made friends with all the right people, basically.
Right.
He did well. So his father, Dashwood, died in 1724, leaving his estate of West Wycombe in Buckinghamshire and the Baronetcy.
Is it Wickham or...
Now, so this is a thing that the whole time I was researching, I'm sure I heard Wycombe and I heard Wickham. I'm pretty sure it's Wickham.
Can I see how it's spelled?
It is that one there. It's spelt like Wycombe.
I would say Wickham.
I think it's Wickham as well. Let's see if my mouth does the right thing as I'm reading. So he got a great deal of money to his then 16-year-old son, which is pretty intense for a 16-year-old to receive, who, instead of staying and taking on his new inherited roles, would soon embark on the traditional rite of passage grand tour with a tutor.
Fun!
Yeah, which wealthy young men traverse throughout Europe, causing chaos, basically.
Right.
It's like the coolest part of this era is like
The Grand Tour.
It's
like Kentucky, but better.
Yeah, it is like Kentucky. It's the rite of passage of Kentucky.
It's like really posh Kentucky.
That is right. Oh my God. That's so funny. So as Dashwood's tutor put it, he fornicated his way across Europe, which is just...
Gross.
Yeah, pretty much. So they all got to do that, these rakes. Dashwood would spend his early adulthood abroad, gaining a notable reputation for notoriety while traveling throughout Europe. Which, I mean, if you're going through Europe, it's kind of, that's what you do, right? Just like cause chaos.
Yeah.
Go through.
It's a Kentucky tour.
Yeah, exactly.
You just like get wasted and...
Have fun.
Yeah.
Well, you know, have fun.
Yeah.
Within reason. Dashwood's journey abroad would include classical aspects, having a fascination with times gone by and Europe's rich history. He travelled to France and Germany for several months, staying in Florence and Rome for years at a time, getting to what only can be described as shenanigans. In one example, while visiting Russia, Dashwood impersonated Charles XII of Sweden, Peter the Great's arch enemy and a man who at this point had been dead for 14 years, in an attempt to seduce the Empress of Russia. It is rumoured to have worked for her as well, several times. Yeah, she was into it. During his time in Rome, Dashwood is documented to have played a rather nasty practical joke on the congregation of the Sistine Chapel. On an evening when the penants scourged or whipped themselves for their sins in the chapel, Sir Francis disguised himself as a night watchman and entered the dimly lit chapel. Brandishing a horsewhip, he lashed out at all with his rage, and the congregation screamed with fright and the cries of Il Diavolo, thinking the devil himself was there to punish them.
That's ghastly.
Isn't that so mean? But
Blackguard.
Yeah, he was a bit of a trickster, just getting into all kinds of trouble. These poor people.
At least after 300 years, no one's actually taking the flagellants seriously anymore. Like, you again.
You still
Guys.
Enough, please. Oh yeah, maybe scaring them was a good idea. Okay, so these travels inspired and fascinated Dashwood with ancient and sacred rituals of the past, as it was openly known of Dashwood's dislike of the religious institution of his day, cultivating a curiosity that led him to wander the halls of dusty catacombs and the old ruins that held debauchery of times past. Which I am also, I'm there with him. I want to go explore that kind of that history.
Have you been to any catacombs?
No, I'm dying to.
You'd love it.
Yeah, I've been overseas a few times, but I haven't been to Europe yet, and I think I need a couple of months.
Yeah, you need to go.
I need to go on a grand tour. We should go. Let's do it. That's going to be our next live show. So Dashwood found himself involved in clubs and societies who had appreciation for classical art, resulting in priceless art collections at his estate. So he got into a few clubs and started a few clubs. Basically, there was the Dilettante Society, which was an appreciation of Greek and Roman art. And then there was the Divan or Divan Club, that was people who had visited the Ottoman Empire and shared their experiences. But
wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of dressing up and
yeah, I imagine it would be a lot of cultural appropriation. Like today we are Turkish.
Yeah, today we're putting on the hat and we're smoking the hookahs and all that. Like it's a lot of that. But it was just to talk and appreciate it, basically. So I can appreciate that kind of time. And he was involved in a lot of things, basically. I think at one point, Dashwood, he was the vice president of both the Foundling Hospital and the General Medical Asylum. So he had his finger in a lot of pies, I will say.
Foundling Hospital?
Yeah. Aww. So he did some good work, thankfully, but I think it was mostly for the connections.
Yeah.
Okay, so where is the Hellfire Club? How did we get here? How did we start here? It was these keen and proper interests and that inspired. It was these keen in proper interests and inspired by the surroundings of a particular pub, the Georgian Vulture, that in 1746, Sir Francis Dashwood, along with two friends, Paul Whitehead and George Bob Darlington, created their own club.
So we've gone way into the future now. We're like 20 more years into the future, 25 years.
Yeah, so I think he's done lots of touring. I think he's spent a lot of time in Europe. A lot of time.
So Wharton, was it Wharton? That's
the first one.
The first one was, so did they know each other?
I don't think so. I don't think
So
they
he was
crossed
more of
paths.
like an inspiration.
Yes, I don't
So he
think
was
they
more of
crossed
like an
paths.
inspiration.
Yes, I believe so. Or he was either, it's so convoluted, like that I can't get a clear answer whether actually it was started by someone else and then Dashwood joined and it changed into something.
Yeah.
It changed in what it goes into now, like, or they heard tales of the Hellfire Club and they're like, I really like that idea, I'm going to steal that one. They became known as the Brotherhood of St. Francis. So I feel like Dashwood started this club.
Because is he St. Francis?
I think he's
Right.
St. Francis. I think it's about him. He was like, I know everything, I'll start
This
it.
is my brotherhood.
Much like its predecessor, the club was a place for societies and society's elite to indulge in depravity, blasphemous conversations, and sinful acts away from prying eyes.
But, you know, when people are like, hey, babe, I'm just going down to the Brotherhood for a couple of hours. Oh, that's good. That sounds wholesome.
Yeah, and you're like,
Yeah, we're totally going to be like serving soup to,
yeah, to
you
the
know,
homeless,
people.
and we're going to do that. Yeah, no. I think that's why they made it sound so wholesome, or they had so many different names to just be like, no, we're a clergy.
we're totally legit.
Of friars. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Respectable.
Totally. All right. After much interruption from police and the limited accommodations available at the pub, there was also a report that the pub burnt down. So who knows? But basically, in 1948, there's been documented and much speculations about the locations of the club, moving from private manors to the homes of the powerful club members. Mm-hmm. But Dashwood then found and acquired the perfect location. The 12th century Medmenham Abbey was located on the hillside of West Wickham Village. That was owned by the Dufferfield family. Dashwood is able to lease and then I think purchase the property from his friend Francis Duffield. And then had it renovated to resemble a French Gothic architecture building, basically, even adding a tower being built to increase the alluring and romantic setting.
Oh, cool.
Very, very cool. So I think it was built in 1160. Mm-hmm. Very old building. I'll have to get some photos and I'll pop them up for you, but it's a really gorgeous building. It's up on this big hill and there's the River Thames surrounding it and there's, you know, trees and like little roads. It's beautiful, really beautiful.
Wow.
So seeking more privacy though, Dashwood tasked 100 men to dig out a network of man-made chalk and flint caverns, which extended 300 to 400 metres underground and are thought to be inspired by Greek subterranean temples, and it took 4 years to complete.
Wow.
So talking about needing something more private and to go underground, he thought so too. The tunnels kind of snake in a V-like formation downwards. It kind of goes like in a little bit and then it goes up and across, and I'm not sure if that's like the tunnels going up and down or if it's like inwards and then around, and it just kind of goes down further as you get further down.
Cool.
Very cool. He also, I'm pretty sure, had to keep swapping out the men because like he didn't want people to know why he was building it.
Right.
They got paid like £1 a day or something like that, and apparently it was very good work, which different times.
Different times.
From the Gothic entrance above ground, a long winding passage leads to several small chambers to a massive banqueting hall, and then down further to the River Styx, and then to the inner temple, which was the lowest point below ground.
When you say to the River Styx, they just called it the River Styx.
They called it the River Styx.
Right.
So a lot of religious and I don't know, I suppose
mythological references.
Absolutely. The caves ran directly beneath the St. Lawrence's Church and Mausoleum, which was purposefully done, having the caves to represent hell to the opposing heaven of the church. As above, so below.
Right.
All very clever planning, all of this was.
I just want to know logistically, how did they get away with, it's a bit cold, let's start a fire. We can't see each other now. You know, how, Dyson air ventilators didn't exist.
It wasn't there yet.
How?
From what I saw, there was actually vents also built into it. So they're like in the ground, you just have one directly going under, from what I could tell.
Okay.
Because I thought the same thing. I was like, they're going to have candles burning. Like, what if the fire starts? Like, what's going to happen? But it looked like there was fully vents, everything built into it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Which, I mean, if you have the time, if you're going to put in the effort, you might as well. Mm-hmm. So, yes, very, very clever. The location was romantic and secluded. Members could come by the River Thames in private barges with girls to spend the night in the Abbey.
Of course, the river.
Perfect location. Mm-hmm. And then they'd leave
under
the same
cover
way.
of darkness.
Mm-hmm. With the chapel still intact as well, the friars, or the monks as they would call themselves, would perform in black mass ceremonies. Yeah, the monks part of it, I'm like, not the same thing, but yeah, I get it. Like, I understand why you'd want that, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Dashwood had stained glass features installed which bore pictures of the members in costume, each in scandalous poses. On the ceiling was painted a magnificent pornographic fresco in bright colours, too terrible to speak of. So just nonsense everywhere. naughty nonsense everywhere.
Yeah.
I can't imagine like getting everything commissioned to be made. They're like, hey, so you know this guy? Yeah, could you do someone kind of like him getting some kind of act performed down here?
Right.
No reason. Just fun, you know, like.
Interesting. I wonder who they would have commissioned to do that.
Yeah, I know. There's just all these like little. I feel like
they've got connections.
They've got connections, and also money's money at this point,
right?
So they don't mind. They're like, I'll pay you extra to keep quiet, and they're like, sweet, great. I'll just do my job and not question this act I'm making out of glass. Mm-hmm. And how fun for the members to come and be like, Dashwood, you made one for me. Oh, that's so sweet. It's just a friend group. Best friends. So a Roman-inspired room was decorated with copies of ancient Roman indecent images, and then decorated with paintings of famous sex workers and the kings of England, including Henry VIII. The walls, the honour of it all. The walls were lined with richly upholstered couches for the monks and their sweethearts. Mm-hmm. Another room was built to boast a fully stocked library of only the finest collection of pornography in Great Britain.
Right.
Housed alongside a splendid assortment of religious texts, of course. A series of smaller private rooms called cells were connected to the theme rooms, all equipped with couches covered in green silk and who knows what in the form of toys.
Right.
In addition to all of this, Sir Francis also had a cellar of fine wines and fully stocked delicacies for the guests, the finest tapestries, furniture, which I'm sure weren't at all damaged during these club meetings.
Never.
And just like, as a thing, they would have staff to serve them, which I can't even imagine what kind of things you'd be seeing, but it was different people every time.
Right.
And there's not really a lot of accounts from them. I think they were just getting their bag and getting out of there, which fair at this time.
Yeah.
They're like, rich people.
Unless they did that whole Nexium thing, like you have to give us, well, they didn't have photos though. Like you have to give us something that incriminates you that we can use against you.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
You leave.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose being in such a position of power over these people, it's just like do what you're told, or else.
There was probably some kind of NDA that they had to sign.
Absolutely, the weird sex cult NDA.
Yeah.
Haven't we all signed? No, anyway. Over the doors of the room was engraved Latin quotations, quote, "Stranger, refuse if you can what we have to offer, and dare to despise convention." And most famously over the entrance of the abbey, now I'm going to butcher this, "Fais que que voudras," or "do what thou wilt." So this was the main
Anything
phrase.
goes.
Anything goes. Do what thou wilt when you're among here in the Hellfire Club.
Did they have a band?
They should have.
They must have had music.
They must have had people hired to do that, whether because in the abbey or, you know, during the parties, like surely. It'd be weird silence.
Yeah, they would have.
Yes.
They would have had something.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't like this cult. I just I just think it's pretty cool sometimes. While the club had many names, once in this location, they became what one could argue as Sir Francis Dashwood's greatest achievement as a rake, the Order of the Friars of St. Francis of Wickham. So that was the full title, and the caves became the most notorious location for the Hellfire Club.
Wow. See, when I think of Hellfire Club, that I think of the caves.
Yeah, that's it. So the location now is the Hellfire Caves.
Right.
Is what it's particularly called. Dashwood's club was meant to attract the most prominent, intellectual and depraved men of the time. Over the history of the club, its members list would include such men as the Prime Minister of England, as we previously mentioned, the Lord Mayor of London, the son of the Archbishop of Canterbury, some of England's greatest artists and poets, the Prince of Wales, and as evidence can strongly suggest, Benjamin Franklin.
Wow, yes. Oh my God.
It's all coming together.
So it's about 1750 at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, around there.
Can I just... No, it's just interesting just because I'm related to a Lord Mayor of London.
Really?
But he was born in 1762, so he probably wasn't there, much to my chagrin.
Wait, what if he was a Hellfire baby? What if he was a Hellfire baby?
That would make me a Hellfire baby.
It's all coming together. It's all coming together. I'm just telling you your family history.
I basically own the Hellfire Caves.
We
Don't you know who I am?
we go to the Hellfire Caves and you're like, actually, we should totally go. If we are able to go overseas and go to Europe, we should go to the Hellfire Caves because you can, and it would be awesome to go to.
Cool.
I didn't know that about you. That's awesome.
I don't have it on a t-shirt.
Don't have it on a t-shirt. It's not really a question I was going to ask. So there we go. I love that. Okay. Let me tell you about what your family members did. So Dashwood was known publicly known to sympathise with the American rebels, with letters being sent between him and Ben Franklin on multiple occasions. Franklin is also documented to have stayed with Dashwood in Wickham Estate in July 1772, which during his stay there is a recorded Hellfire Club meeting taking place.
Wow.
So it all kind of comes together, and also like
It's all coming together.
in the BuzzFeed video is more focused on the Ben Franklin element of it. He was a freak. He was a little freak. He loved women loved him.
Okay.
He wrote a whole a letter to young men about why being with older women is better. Like he also used to do like sunbathing in the morning. He loved a good sunbake.
Okay.
So fully naked, just like
Yeah. Bit of scandal.
a little bit of scandal, a little bit of a freak. So it kind of makes sense that Benjamin
15
Franklin,
bodies in the basement.
maybe he was trying to do his own Hellfire Club and it just went wrong.
Maybe that's just where they put the waiters and waitresses that blabbed.
Oh my god, yeah. They're like, take this
cracked
back
the
with you.
code.
It's all coming together. Okay, so also in the Hellfire Caves, there is a room called the Franklin Club Room.
Oh, he got his own room.
Can you be more obvious?
Wow.
Yeah. So what actually happened during these club meetings? What could the members expect when arriving? Gemma, I'd like you to put on your cloak and a mask. Just picture it.
Done.
And join us for the Hellfire Club meeting. So just as a little disclaimer, this was in one of the books. So, quote, the order has no documented history officially. If its members were not actually sworn to secrecy, they at least had a gentleman's agreement about it.
Yeah.
We must piece the story together from a few hostile accounts written in the 1760s, clues in letters, poems, and so forth, and from a mass rumour shading off the legend. So while it was like pretty secluded, the River Thames were right there. People could see. Like they could see what's going on.
They could see who's coming, who's going.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when it looked like this. Meetings took place twice a month and sometimes were week-long parties, always in the dark of night. I know. They were just like, why go home? I'll just stay here. I'll be here till the next meeting. The friars would arrive by special gondolas painted red belonging to the club. They would ferry the monks.
So they're not even pretending.
They're not even trying to
not
hide
to
it.
Be friars.
Yeah,
of the
pretty
Hellfire Club.
much. That's pretty much it. They'd ferry the monks with their company from London along the River Thames. The members were allowed to bring a, quote, a lady of cheerful, lively disposition to improve the general hilarity.
Okay, so you can bring a chick, but she's got to be fun.
She's got to be fun. She's got to be into it. With only candles to light their way, the friars would arrive in white cloaks lined with scarlet red. Ladies in nuns' robes covering their face with masks as to avoid any awkward run-ins with a husband or acquaintance. The woods around the abbey were filled with statues of Greek gods Hermes and Eros, carved with phallic staves. Man-made cosy nooks and caves with beds of soft moss and stone couches. So the whole area was for this club. You could go anywhere.
It was a free-for-all.
Free-for-all. There was a statue of Venus as well, bending over to get like a thorn out of her foot that was like, as soon as you went around the corner, she was there, ass first. And they were like, oh, yes, Venus.
I wonder if it still exists.
I know. I want to know so much. There was even a marble outhouse made called the Temple of Cloetian, who was the Roman goddess of purity and of filth. Every
Both?
detail. Yeah.
Wow,
She took both of them.
Okay.
But no detail spared, basically. The whole thing was made for it. Meanwhile, a bell tolled from the Abbey Tower with a haunting organ musicians playing to welcome those who dared to enter. Occasionally, witnesses described the image of the arrival as the spirits of the dead monks returning to the Abbey, much to the delight of Dashwood. This wasn't just a club, it was a show, it was a spectacle. So I think they kind of got the idea that we can't ban people from looking, so let's make a little bit of a legend about it. Let's make it creepy and
Let them talk.
Yeah, let them talk. Let rumours fly about ghost monks coming back to the Abbey. I think maybe covered up a little bit of what they're doing as well.
I wonder, they would have had security, though, to stop people, like, going too far.
Getting into, like, boating over and joining in. Yeah, I imagine so. They probably, had the King's Guard there if they wanted to.
Possible.
That's it. So as the procession approached the Abbey, Sir Francis stood at the entrance in a white robe and a red cardinal hat, and he cried out, "What is the password?" And to which the monks responded together, "Do what thou wilt." The drama of it all. So they passed by the statue of Hippocrates, the Egyptian god of silence and secrets. The monks would enter the chapel of which only the club members were permitted to enter to begin their dark rituals. In the abbey, lights burned behind panes of red glass. A silver chalice engraved with pornographic designs handed around to fill their horn-shaped cups with brandy and brimstone.
They really, the attention to detail here and the atmosphere.
Right? Really want to take you there. I think this is
paralleled
perfect.
Only by your own.
Yeah, that's it. So a toast was drunk to the powers of darkness and with a background hum of a deep-toned gong.
So they had like welcome drinks.
Pretty much.
Okay,
Like, hi,
because I was like,
everyone.
do they have pre-drinks or,
Yeah.
I mean, probably they would have had a few on the gondola.
Oh, yeah. Have a bit on the gondola, take it as you go in. Then you've got a horn, which is like, I don't know, like 10 drinks. It's huge.
Yeah. So
This is pre-party.
they're getting toasted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Loving it too. Loving it. I mean, they've got panes of glass that look like them having fun. At the time, of course, books on black magic were illegal alongside sexually graphic literature, but alas, Dashwood had connections to private booksellers and publishers, being the powerful man he was. The books used were for blatantly blasphemous ceremonies, and we don't know exactly which books they were using or why or how, basically.
Okay.
They were just having fun and making fun of religion at the time. If it wasn't obvious already, Satanism plays a large role in this club. The book Paradise Lost by the poet John Milton was published in 1667 and has a lot to answer for in the turn of alternative beliefs. I've read a little bit of Paradise Lost. It's hard to read. Have you read it?
I haven't read it. No.
It's, because it's actually poetry, and I think the newer versions have basically a description of what's going on.
Was Milton British?
I believe so. I assume so. I'll have to find out.
There's a lot going on around that time because you've got the Catholics and not just the Protestants, but at this point you've got the Puritans and they're like quite extreme.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Paradise Lost, being English as well, like English writing, I don't think it's translated. I'm not sure. We'll have to check that. I think it does have a lot to answer for, actually, trying to empathize with Satan and Lucifer and bringing these other stories in. I think especially 1667, so that turn of the century, people were starting to go, I don't know if I love this, I don't know if I believe this, X, Y, Z. So very interesting.
That is interesting.
Regardless of whether these friars actually believed in Satan being an alternative to God or whether Satan was just a representation of rebellion to them, basically. So it's they probably weren't being very serious, but it was prominent at the time. To quote Daniel Mannix in his book, The Hellfire Club, quote, "It's hard to tell how seriously the club took their Satanism. In fact, it's hard to tell how seriously they took anything."
Because if they didn't take conventional religion seriously, how are they going to take Satanism seriously?
Exactly.
I think it's just all a bit of fun.
Yeah, that's it. And taboo. It's very taboo. It makes it very sexy to Satanism. It was the fashion to be cynical about love, honor, patriotism, and religion at the time. At the same time, the rakes were capable of fighting to the death for a moral issue, duels,
Really?
ruining themselves to help others, and even dying of a broken heart over the death of a friend. The Earl of Sandwich, which we will get back to him.
I'm going to be, Earl of Sandwich is in a couple of my episodes too.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. This is cool then. Yeah. Great. The most notorious
Well, I mean, there's a few Earls, but one of his
them.
grandchildren.
It's kind of hard to miss Earl of Sandwich, isn't it?
Yes. Samuel Pepys is very fond of my Lord Sandwich, as he mentions him a lot.
Well, I think I mentioned it later, but I think the general consensus of he's the man that invented the sandwich.
Yeah, I think it came from his area his estate.
Yeah, I think
someone made a sandwich and said, "What shall we call it?" Looked at the sign, Sandwich Street. Well, here we go.
Street. Oh, perfect. Yeah. I don't know why, but it is perfect. So he was a very notorious rake at the time. He boasted that he specialized.
Makes so much sense, doesn't sandwiches. It? Oh my God.
I know, they're naughty.
Yeah, they're wild.
What a wild concept.
You know what they could have called it? Club sandwich.
That's where the club sandwich came from. The Earl of Sandwich specialised in seducing virgins because he enjoyed the corruption of innocence for its own sake. But he went into retirement after the death of one of his innumerable mistresses. So the drama is there. Rakes are
Such was his grief.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
So it was a time where old values were being destroyed and men were desperately trying to find a new standard, but always in a sneering, superior fashion. And then it kind of like ties up what was going on at the time. There is little writing about the Black Mass portion of the club meetings.
Of course, why would there be?
Exactly.
That would be folly.
Exactly. Out of all the things these bogus priests did in the Abbey, this above all else was considered a terrible sin. They didn't want any document, no documentation about this
part. It wasn't just one guy that was like...
Actually...
writing by candlelight.
Well, a little bit, because we're reading about it now, I suppose. Someone didn't follow the gentleman's agreement.
So I got to tell someone about this.
I can't keep this one in. Yeah, exactly. It's assumed that they followed the general lines of an assumed black mass. So celebrating on the body of a naked woman laid out as an altar, drinking wine as body shots, inverted crosses, and a good deal of sexual innuendos and double entendres, of course. It was just a mere parody of Catholicism. But it wasn't as serious as it sounds, obviously. One account from John Wilkes, who was an English radical journalist and politician at the time, he found these black masses so boring that he once dressed a baboon up as the devil and locked it in a trunk and stowed it in the abbey before they all arrived. And when the members called upon Lord Satan to appear, Wilkes released the frightened animal to the shock of the group of rakes and promptly causing them to lose their minds.
I bet they did.
Yeah, so Lord Sandwich shouted allegedly to...
We all would have had like massive wigs on and stuff.
The drama of it all, they were like, yes, Lord Satan. And then this happens. Lord Sandwich shouted to his maker, spare me, gracious devil. I never knew that you'd really come, or I never would have invoked thee. Come on, guys. Come on now. Okay, so now to the best worst part is the after party. Dressed in religious costumes and provided with the best wine and food a man could get, the clergy would retire to the hallowed halls of the Hellfire caves. In a poem from Charles Churchill, who was a member, writes, quote, whilst womanhood in habit of a nun at Medmenham lies by backwards monks undone. It's pretty clear. Shenanigans. It was just big old orgies.
Right.
Wine-fueled naughty nun orgies.
Yeah.
They loved it. I think I've been alluding to the sexual acts, but it's just a bunch of men having big old group sex, basically.
Wow, yeah.
So as far as it can be made out, the spirit of the order was a heterosexual group, but group sex.
Was it though?
Come on now.
No.
Let's be real.
Come
like,
on.
Is being homosexual where we draw the line here? Like, is that what we're drawing the line on?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
A common occurrence was group sex, so each members would have their pick of playmates and their own private cell to do what thou will. There are many rumours of pleasure boats on the Thames as well, so they're going to go for a trip up and down the river.
Wow.
Proper objects being provided, including but not limited to a hobby horse in the shape of a penis, carved for her pleasure.
Wow.
Yeah,
They've just spent so much time on this.
So much time, so much money. Like,
oh, yeah.
I suppose if it took 4 years for the caves to be built, it's kind of like...
They've got time.
He's like, what else do I want?
In the meantime, this is what we're going to do.
Could you make a hobby horse, but add a big old penis on it? Can we do that? Let's do that. Nice of them to consider the women's pleasure as well. These naughty nuns were thought to be hired sex workers most of the time, but also were often women of fashion, married and unmarried, some even wives of the members, with their faces always hidden, quote, as we said before, so that no misunderstanding may arise from an unexpected meeting with one's legal husband or professed admirer.
So it's old school swingers?
Pretty much. Yeah. It's just a big old swingers club, but like the drama. It's also rumoured that Sir Francis Dashwood's own stepmother and sisters attended the club meetings as nuns, and if Game of Thrones has taught me anything, everyone took great delight in the hilarity of incest. They thought it was so funny. Apparently Francis just thought it was hilarious to pick his own stepmom or sister out of the lineup, which there was a lineup. They all just got to pick. And yeah, they thought it was hilarious. And I'm like, cool.
They were being gay as well. Yeah,
gay as hell.
Yeah, if they're doing that.
Come on now. Incest's okay, but like, you know, men aren't. Anyway. Despite the many locations across the Abbey grounds to explore and exploit during these meetings, apparently most couples preferred to remain in the main rooms and build up their passions by voyeurism, which, if you don't know what voyeurism means, it's sexual gratification from watching the action of others. To quote Jeffrey Ash again, nothing, however, gives the slightest hint of sexual equality. If the nuns were recognised and received, they were neither first class nor even second class members. They were simply the companions for the friars. So did Sir Francis have any deeper purpose? Deeper meaning to this club? It's easy to see that the club was built for the pursuit of pleasure, hidden from the strict rules of society and guilt of religion. A private place for fellow politician members could speak plainly and strike deals in the dark, but really it just seems like a place to get your freak on.
I bet deals were made there though, and I bet there were a lot of intense conversations and maybe even revolutionary conversations.
Well, that's another interesting part. Obviously we can't know because of no documentation, but like how many of the world's biggest revolutionized acts were spoken about here. It's really wild and kind of like real reflection on the human kind, isn't it? Some of the biggest decisions were made in a big old swingers club.
In a cave.
Rumours of high-born devil worshippers who mocked church religion and who supped with Satan came through as well, which I think was a carefully crafted charade Dashwood wanted. A legacy through colourful rumours makes a legend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he wanted.
Exactly right. I think that's just what it is.
Yeah.
So the downfall of the club is a bit complicated, and we touched on it before, but simply put, books were being published that contained stories easily identified with Medmenham and the club.
Right.
In which Lord Sandwich was ridiculed for having mistaken a monkey for the devil. Sandwich! These books sparked the association between the much-rumoured Medmenham monks and the Hellfire Club. So by this time, many of the friars were either dead or too far away from the club to continue as it did before. Records and reports...
It's kind of like one of those things like, how do you explain that? Like, hey, we've got this thing that we do. Yeah. Do you want to come... Because people are dying off, but we need got peeps. Okay, well, what is it?
Well, do you like fine food, women, orgies, and dressing up?
Blasphemy.
Yeah. How do you feel about Satan? Yeah. Just scoping it out. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like a bunch of friends thought it was a great idea, and then as soon as it was tapering off, it's like, well, what do we do about this?
Yeah, yeah.
Records and reports of membership to the Hellfire Club were being used as well for political ruin of many of its members.
Yes.
A witch hunt which bears reflection within Stranger Things' own Hellfire Club, which I thought was quite cool. The Hellfire Club in this carnation was finished in 1766. I have very little information about the abbey's use after then, but up until World War II, so a fair decent chunk of time away, when plans were being made to use the caves as large air raid shelters if nearby towns were bombed, but thankfully the plan didn't need to be carried out.
I think there was probably a lot of maybe a lot of wives or maybe a lot of family members go, I don't want you to go there anymore. All right, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You choose. It's the Hellfire Club or it's me. Well, I've had enough.
Exactly. Like, are you going to pick your life that your family and your money and your political standing provides for, or are you going to pick this like fun club?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which one? And even if you weren't involved, if there was rumors, that could be your ruin, basically.
That's it. I
Not
think there was
worth it.
probably a lot of people that are like, actually, I probably can't come anymore because, like, I'm a judge and...
the wife.
you know, like, it's getting a bit precarious here. Sorry, we've had a great time, but we have to step back.
How long can you do something like this without it getting out?
How can it be sustained?
Exactly. It seems like for a couple of years at the very least.
Well, look, I mean, you know, there are a lot of organisations, clubs, you know, that do exist to this day that are, well, rumoured to exist.
Yes.
That are quite ancient, but...
I mean, Freemasons, straight up one of them, but it's not as secretive as it was as well. So I don't think they're having big old orgies, but who knows? I've been to a Freemason like dinner before, and it was kind of like, it was giving RSL vibes. I got very dressed up and I got there and I went, oh, that's some harsh overhead lighting. Okay, it's not that kind of
Palmer and pot.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I did have a Palmer actually. It was great. And then they do obviously a lot of charity work, Freemasons, but so not quite the same thing. Can you also imagine that if air raid shelter, getting the whole town down to these caves, what they would have found?
Children, don't look up.
Don't look up. Don't look at anything, actually. Don't worry about that. Don't ask what that is. Yeah, thank goodness it didn't have to be used.
Why is the floor sticky?
So during the late 1940s, the caves were renovated and turned into a very popular tourist attraction by the late Sir Francis Dashwood, who was the 11th in line, so a few Dashwoods along. After a fairly long life and focus on his political career, Sir Francis Dashwood, our original, died the 1st of December 1781 in West Wickham. So he had a pretty good, decent life. He didn't really get affected by all this.
He partied, man. He had a great life.
Yeah, exactly right. He's kind of a legend, to be honest. So for the purposes of entertainment, I've left out a lot of the darker side of what an underground club of drunken assholes would probably entail.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there isn't a lot of first-hand accounts from the staff in particular. But if you want to visit where Benjamin Franklin got his freak on, you can visit the Hellfire Caves for yourself. So the Hellfire Caves have had more than 2.5 million visitors since reopening in 1951. The tour takes the visitors along the passage, which extends 300 to 400 meters underground, past a series of small chambers. You go through the banqueting hall, the river Styx, the temple. According to the local tourist bureau as well, much of the profits earned by the caves has been donated to charities, including the National Trust as well. And this is where the YouTubers came in. They went and visited the tour of the caves, and it's like you can go all the way down to the last room if you can handle it. It seemed very eerie, very ominous, as you can imagine. Caves built underground were much like I assume the catacombs are. It's got some scary vibes to it.
Oh, yeah.
And the best part is the hauntings, of course. So it's a bit of a ghost tour kind of situation. So local legend claims that the caves are haunted by Suki, a young maiden who was accidentally killed by people playing a practical joke on her. Others claim that the ghost of Paul Whitehead, if you remember from the first club with Sir Francis Dashwood, Paul loved the club. He loved it. He was the secretary and steward of the Order of Medmenham, and has been seen at the Abbey. He died in 1774, and as he's specified, his heart was placed in an urn at West Wickham, but was stolen in the 1820s.
Right.
Very weird. He wanted like his ashes, like not ashes, I suppose, weren't doing that at the time, but he wanted to be at West Wickham.
He wanted to be interred there.
Yeah, basically. So yes.
That's metal.
That's it. So visit the hellfirecaves.co.uk if you are going overseas anytime this year. And that is the story of the Hellfire Club.
I was there.
You
glad. Took me there.
Good. I wanted you to like envision what it was like, and I'll show you some photos and stuff. It's very cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
But
Thank you so much.
Thanks. You're welcome. It was really fun. It was hard to research, but it was worth it. It was so much fun.
Because it would have been so fragmented. All the information would have been, some say this and some say that. And it is alleged that this.
Yeah. Allegedly.
And dates wouldn't have been exact. And
man, it's always dates with history.
History is about dates.
You're like,
yeah.
Yes. But it's always wrong. It's always all over the place. That there is so much more, obviously. So please go watch the documentaries, read the books. The books are amazing. If you're really interested in this kind of thing. I read them online. You can do like online libraries now.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yes.
But yeah, what an interesting part of history. Probably way more influential than we know as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would you join? Probably not at the time.
I might have.
Yeah, I think I might have too.
Yeah.
Be a little naughty nun. Why not? It is a lot of like old gross dudes probably though.
Well, yeah. There is. I don't know. I wouldn't mind going for a night.
Yeah.
Check it out for a night.
Have fun. Just to be like, I did that. Tick it off the list.
Yeah.
Get out of there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Shall we wrap it up for the moment, because we've been talking for flippin' ages?
We have been talking. It's actually like shorter than I expected.
Really?
It was a lot bigger, and I cut it down as usual. But yeah, if you want to hear more though, if you like want to hear the longer versions of our stories, maybe that's something we could get into. Maybe we could get into that.
Yeah, maybe we could do like an after show wrap up. Something.
I really liked, I think I mentioned it last season, my friend Amy, who I adore, she listens to the podcast. Hey, Amy. She came up with shit bits from the crisper.
Right. Yes, shit bits.
Shit bits from the crisper. So if you have any ideas, or like not ideas, rather, if you know something that we don't, or if something that we've gone, we'll have to look that up, and send it to us. And we'll go,
you've got a shit bit.
You've got a shit bit from the crisper. It's just those little shit bits that you're like, I didn't grab that. Oh, I didn't get rid of that. So if you have one, if you have some answers, I actually got one for the wrap-up episode on Instagram. I'll have to mention as well. My friend's over there correcting us on something. So I'll get that comment and credit that person, because I was like, thank you.
Right.
Yes. I don't always have time to cover absolutely everything, so it's fun when you guys go, actually, I know about this. So please add in.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we were like, let's wrap up, because we talk a lot and I'm just talking. So awesome.
Hey, listen. Until next time,
contact us on Instagram, all our social media. You come talk to us. And while you're doing that, be creepy.
But don't be a creep.
Bye.
Woo!
Beyond the Shadows podcast.
In the darkest corners of our universe lie spaces where even the light won't go.
Places where terror and the unknown lurk, always waiting.
Join Ryan and Scott on the Beyond the Shadows podcast as we pull back the curtain and peer into the darkness.
We'll examine hauntings, true crimes, mysteries, UFOs, exorcisms, reincarnations, mysteries, and all things dark.
Join us as we go Beyond the Shadows.